Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome everyone to the June 16th Town Board Change of Zone meeting and ask if Councilman O'Connor would please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance so we can begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We've been communicating. Oh, there he is. Great. John, glad everything worked out.
Sorry about that.
There are 3 change of zone public hearings this evening and 1 decision item scheduled. Before we would begin, I would just ask anyone wishing to address the board regarding our scheduled public hearings to either use the raise hand function on Zoom or type into the question and answer line stating which particular hearing you wish to speak on. Our first public hearing is TC 5370, Dwayne Disu. I would ask the clerk, Olga Murray, to please read the hearing notice.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. TC 5370. Notice is hereby given that the Town Board of the Town of Islip will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, June 16th, 2021 at 5 p.m. via Zoom webinar and will be streamed live over the internet on the application of Dwayne Disu. Applicant requests a change of zone from Residence AA to General Service E District in order to expand the gross floor area of an existing hotel. Site plan modifications may be required as part of this application. The environmental impacts will also be assessed on this property located in the Beach School District on the east side of West Lighthouse Walk, Kismet, Town of Islip, Suffolk County, New York. Town Board, Town of Islip, Olga Murray, Town Clerk.
Thank you, Olga. Okay, if the applicant is ready.
Madam Supervisor, may I just interject that we have received numerous correspondence in support of this application.
We have received correspondence on both sides of the issue, and they have been distributed to all the members of the board and been reviewed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. LeCarry, if you wish to begin.
Great, thank you, Madam Supervisor. I think I unmuted myself, correct?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Tom LeCarry. I represent Dwayne Disu in this application for the Botel. The property is commonly known as the Botel. I am a Kismet homeowner since 1989. I have the unique position of living within 200 feet of the subject property. And I am a member of the Kismet Community Association. I am a member of the Kismet Fire Department. So my perspective is multilateral. I want to first give a little bit to those of you who are not familiar, the layout of Kismet. And starting from east to west, we have the bulkhead condos and the Margarita Villas on the west side of, on the east side of town. That's off Pine. They're both business 1 zoned. Right behind the villas is where Dwayne Disu, the applicant, has his home. Moving towards the east, we have the next across from Pine is Dana DeRuvo. It's a residential dwelling right in the middle of everything. Then we have the store, the Kismet Inn, what was formerly Surf's Out, now known as the Dive on my block, which is East Lighthouse. We have the Botel, which goes from East Lighthouse to West Lighthouse. And on the west side of West Lighthouse are numerous residences, primarily facing, they don't face the street, but their views are primarily to the west over the seashore property and to the north over the bay. Now, a little bit about Kismet, and again, I apologize, because I think a lot of you are familiar with Kismet. In the 40s and 50s, Kismet was really a group of rugged individualists. There were very few families, mostly one-story shacks, a couple of 2 stories, not that many. And they were all built about 2 to 3 feet above the grade. Back in the 60s and through the 80s, it became a grouper haven for grouper homes. There were probably 30 or 40 grouper homes to my knowledge, of which today I think I counted about 17. And when I say grouper homes, I'm talking about homes that have anywhere from 8 to 28 people in them at any particular time. From the 90s to the present, there's been a substantial gentrification and change of Kismet from what I call, or what a lot of us call the Wild West, to a family-oriented community. KCA and the KFD, Kismet Community Association, and the Fire Department, we have numerous events each year supporting our community, supporting our department, supporting our families. Now, the children of the 80s, they're now, in fact, buying homes today. A lot of these homes have been elevated. We have some mega mansions, and we still have some very simple 1-story dwellings that are basically at ground level. So the current range of homes is from ground level shacks, houses that were floated over on the barge, such as my own house, the house across the street, the Mandel house, Larry Cole's house, back in the 60s when they widened Sunrise Highway. We have year-rounders, we have raised homes, we have fortified homes. As I say, the Kismet still has some vestiges of the past, but we're looking into the future. Now, the history of the Botel pretty much tracks the history of Kismet. Botel was built post-World War II, somewhere around 1955. It was 11 units, which was then in conformance, which was residential D district. That's 1955. In 1960, the town changed the zoning from residential D to residential CAA, which allows technically only for 1 and 2 family dwellings. The Botel at that point became a non-conforming structure, which is one of the reasons we're here today. From 71 to 75, there were several applications made to the then ZBA to build out and add 2 additional buildings for a total of 39 units, as opposed to the 11 that exist today. In fact, I've reviewed the minutes of those meetings, and at one point, the chairman of the board said, "Why don't you gentlemen just put a 2nd story on?" And the owners said, well, the building was built to accommodate that, but they wanted more space, they wanted more income, which was the gist of the 39 units as opposed to the 11 units. Flash forward now, we're 2021. That property deteriorated substantially over the past 10 years. Many of you have been there, have seen that deterioration, even to the point where about half of those units were completely uninhabitable, filled with mold, vermin, you name it, everything except people. The property was then rescued last year, and I say rescued because that's exactly what happened, by Dwayne Disu, Ed, and Paul Major, all 3 of which have homes in Kismet. Dwayne has been there the longest. I believe his family goes back 25, 30 years in Kismet, and Dwayne has been a homeowner for at least 15 that I know of. 20. Dwayne, by the way, is here with me.
Yeah, I've been coming to Kismet for 50 years.
Yeah, Dwayne's been going to Kismet for, as he says, 50 years, a homeowner for 15 or 20 years. I'm sorry, 20 years. 21 years, sorry,
21
Dwayne.
years.
Okay. You couldn't have picked a better person to rescue this property because he has the heart of Kismet and the soul of Kismet running through his veins. He is a true Kismet person that would do absolutely nothing to engender hostility or anything negative in our community. Now, the description of our project basically is that we want to add a 2nd story over the 10 units. And that 2nd story will be a bedroom only. It will not have any plumbing, therefore there's no bathroom. It will not have any kitchens. The only access will be interior through a stairwell. We're not changing the number of units. It will remain as 11 units. There's no potential for subdividing. We will absolutely adhere to the strict FEMA rules as they require us to. We don't want to put the town or anybody else in jeopardy of losing their ability to work with FEMA. I think it's called decertification. The reasons that we're making this application is not just for the second story. We need to legalize what is there. If there were a destruction of this building, we could not rebuild as of right. It's non-conforming. We're not looking, as I said, to expand the capacity. The proposed improvements are going to fit well within the nature and character of what Kismet has become. It's a proposal for what we are today, not for what we were in 1955. Kismet also, the Botel will serve as a bookend, so to speak, with the bulkhead on the east side and the Botel on the west side. It will be a modern building and not the barracks that it was designed originally as. It is upscale. It will create an initial impression for those getting off of the ferry at Kismet that will be very pleasing to anyone who sees Kismet for the first time, or the 100th time for that matter. If the last month has been any indication of the type of clientele that we are attracting, it's been fully occupied. There have been no parties, obviously, no noise issues, no groups. It's doing exactly what the owners have claimed they want to do, attract an upscale group of young families, children. They don't want to overuse it. They don't want to pack it in as it has been in the past, where you had 5 and in some cases 6 people crammed into one tiny room that might be 20 by 20. There is a vacant lot that is behind the applicant's property that he owns. He bought with this. That is residential and will remain residential. It is not part of this application. It will not be used in connection with the Botel use. The transformation to date has been pretty incredible. I know some of you have seen over there, some of you have seen the property, but it's really the best possible situation that we can have by having Dwayne come in and do these improvements. Now, we've had several meetings because there were issues raised. We originally received a letter, as I think the town planning department did back in April, from the Kismet fire commissioners. And they had some misunderstanding as to the heights, as to the access, as to the use of ladders. We responded. I sent a letter to the clerk's office this morning, which was dated June 1st, which I responded to the Kismet commissioner's letter that answered and addressed each and every one of their concerns. Dwayne then met with the Kismet commissioners on June 11th to personally address each and every issue that they had and to explain what he was doing and to pretty much assuage their concerns about access and safety, etc. We then had our Kismet Community Association meeting on June 6th, after which, and before actually, Dwayne met with numerous residents to review what the proposal that we have here today really is and what it's about. We've been working with local artists. We've been working with local people in connection with this zoning change. There are no ulterior motives here. It's been suggested by some people in the community, okay? The specifics of our meeting with the fire department, which I believe Gary Leone will be addressing later, okay? Was that we would agree to provide them training using our building, our property, making sure they understood all the safety precautions, and there are additional and substantial safety precautions that Dwayne has taken and will be taking in connection with the proposed improvements. We will thoroughly review the layout. Now, layout is important as a fireman, knowing where the exits are, how to gain access. There are so many homes in this community that the access is either limited, estranged, difficult, or impossible in some cases. That really scare me and really concern a lot of members of the fire department if there were a real emergency. Group homes in particular, which I indicated, there are at least 17 that I counted, where you go up the stairs, down the stairs, into little hallways. You don't know what you're going to encounter. Access to some of these group of homes is extremely difficult because the windows were never built to accommodate egress or ingress. We addressed the load capacity. The load capacity here is going to be less than what most of these group of homes have today. Load capacity meaning the number of people that will, maximum number of people that will ever be on the premises at one given time. The results of the meeting with Dwayne, I believe, was that the Kismet commissioners are re-looking at this and will take a neutral stance on it. All of our rooms, everything will be uniform. It will be somewhat safer, a lot safer than most homes in our community. Now, I'm going to have Jim Netter at some point talk about the market value of the effects on the market value of this proposed development, since it is an upscale development, and since we will be having numerous Cs and Rs, covenants and restrictions that have been drafted, will be drafted by the town, and that we are working with the residents on West Lighthouse. Everybody's value will not only be protected, but I firmly believe, and I do a lot of real estate, I think most of you know that the values will be increased substantially on every home in our community. It will attract a new group of purchasers. People who rent ultimately become owners. I did. Most of the people I know did. My neighbors, every one of my neighbors did. Jim Netter will further describe what he feels is the effect on the values. Now, the nature and character of what we propose is going to be, as I said, have a positive effect on the community. We are still working on the CNRs with the neighbors. We are still working with the planning department on the design issues. Okay. In fact, on the design, the original proposals that the planning department had called for a 31-foot peak on the reverse gables. We were able to engineer that down to 28, and we further want to engineer that down. I know there's been proposals for flat roofs, for slanted roofs, for any number of things, but we will be working with the planning department and the neighbors to achieve a happy medium. I know there are going to be numerous pros and cons here tonight or this afternoon. It's not that late yet.
Getting there.
We're getting there. Okay. I will reserve any conclusions that I have or conclusory remarks till after everybody has spoken. Okay.
Thank you.
But I do have one more thing I do want to go over, because you did receive a letter today or yesterday from Gerard Glass. And the only reason I really need to respond to this is because it contains, and Gerard Glass is a terrific professional, a well-respected individual who I happen to like. And most of you know I don't like a lot of lawyers. Gerard Glass sent on behalf of some of the residents his concerns. And specifically, I'm going to look at the concerns he has. He first states that we will be the tallest structure in Kismet. There's a little tool here. This is called a laser measurer. I've calibrated it by my own calculations. I've used it on numerous buildings. And even at 28 feet, there are approximately 100 homes in the community that are taller than what was proposed for the Botel, even though Gerard says that we would be the tallest in the building, in the community. Gerard also says the building needs to be elevated. Well, those FEMA rules only require elevation if I'm going to read the FEMA rules here. Bear with me, I'm sorry. Only requires elevation if the FEMA, if the proposed improvements exceed 50% of the existing market value of the structure. We're gonna keep it under that. We don't want to raise the building, and even if it had to be raised, we are at 8.1 to 8-foot elevation according to our elevation certificate. It would have to be raised under a foot. As I said, we do not want to raise this building. It would be a burden, of course, and we're going to do what we need to do with the town to make sure that the proposed improvements are kept within that 50% rule.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, I think I'm basically done with that part of it. There's a few things else, but we'll address them as we go through this. I would like to introduce Joe Clemens first to explain briefly what the improvements will be. I just want to point out one quick thing, though, and then I'm on my way. I know you don't want to hear me anymore. Basically, we consider this really an upscale modification of a really tired building that was built for, from, and during a different era. And we're looking, as I said, to attract an upscale clientele, not the yahoos, as we call them, small families, not groupers. The existing zoning doesn't work, as I said earlier, because we can't rebuild and because it doesn't fit with what we have become. The change in zone fits what Kismet has become. All right, Joe, are you out there?
Sir.
Okay.
Good evening to the board. My name is Joseph Clemens, a partner within the firm German and Clemens Architecture PC, located at 3275 Veterans Memorial Highway, Suite B11, Ronkonkoma, New York, 11779. I'll apologize in advance for some repetitiveness, but I'm speaking to you this evening in regards to the 0.928 acre parcel, which equates to just north of 40,000 square feet and is located at 110 East Lighthouse Walk in Kismet, property tax map number 0500-491-0111. This application proposes a change of zone from residence CAA to general service E district in order to expand the gross floor area of an existing Botel. To clarify, the proposed expansion does not increase the already existing number of units, nor does it increase the footprint of the existing structure. The request made by my client is to add a second floor area of approximately 250 square feet per unit with a second floor deck which overlooks the bay, increasing the size and comfortability of the individual unit itself. The subject parcel was originally CO'd for multiple dwellings in June of 1955. In addition to accommodate a utility room had occurred in October of 1965. As recently as July of 2016, the Town of Islip Building Department amended the CO to account for the 11th dwelling unit and accessory structures on the site. It is the intent of my client to maintain the existing use of the property, however, enhance it. The GSE zoning classification requested would appear to be appropriate for the existing Botel use and is actually rather quite stringent in regards to the other as of right permitted uses, limited strictly to hotels and motels and boarding houses or lodging houses. Any other potential uses are limited as well and would require a special permit from the planning board, requiring additional public hearings, thus alleviating any possible public concern in regards to the use, as they would be given an opportunity to once again speak on any such application. The GSE zoning would also provide the applicant the ability to rebuild the structure in any event of catastrophe, a right which they currently do not have under the existing CAA zoning classification. The existing ground floor area of approximately 5,422 square feet, including the accessory structures and roof overs, is to remain, but undergo aesthetic improvements internally in regards to finishes and externally as well. The proposed second floor area, which includes interior stair openings, is approximately 3,166 square feet and will provide each unit with access to a second floor deck, which overlooks Great South Bay. The second floor deck in total is approximately 1,220 square feet. The gross floor area proposed is approximately 9,808 square feet, or 24.2% of the lot, which is well under the permitted FAR of 40% within the GSE zone. The proposal set forth also complies with zoning criteria as it relates to area density and width of lot. I would also like to note that almost 76% of the lot is to remain natural, almost 4 times the 20% requirement of the Town of Islip land development regulations. The exterior aesthetic will be improved upon as well. The client has recently resided the structure with certain T/5 5-inch cedar impressions. The same aesthetic will carry over into the proposed second floor area, along with the same level of quality and craftsmanship. We have worked with the planning department, taking into consideration their comments in regards to the overall aesthetic, and will continue to do so. The ultimate design is to be finalized with the planning department, as the goal will be to provide an aesthetic which enhances the surrounding community while taking advantage of the characteristics which the site has to offer. As you can see from plans provided, my clients simply wish to establish and maintain a property of which conforms to the town of Islip requirements, while providing something which contextually fits in with the surrounding area. The improvements requested will become a benefit to the community, enhance the aesthetic, especially to use which has already been established and legally exists today per the certificate of occupancy. New landscaping will be added, which will enhance the look of the site and will inevitably be a vast improvement from that of the former property that has already existed in this prior condition for many years. In closing, please note that an initial presentation was made to the planning board back on January 20th of 2021, and had followed with a decisional hearing on April 28th, where we had been granted planning board approval to proceed with this application. It is therefore our hope that the town board is also favorable of our application and the request for the improvements. As such, we respectfully request that you grant the change of zone so that our clients can continue operating within the proper zoning district and continue being a pleasant neighbor. We all want nothing more but to enhance the Kismet community, which is therefore the reason for the proposal and to enhance the town of Islip.
Thank you, Mr. Clemens.
Thank you.
Is that it?
I have just a few more that do have some input as to this, and then.
As long as it's not repetitive, because.
No, I agree with you on that.
Clemens said was basically what you said.
But he said enough. We all-
Okay, thank you.
I agree with you, Ms. Carpenter. All right. Tim Mooney, I would ask to say a few words if he's out there.
I'm sorry, Madam Supervisor, are you to call on the guest speakers, or is this gentleman to do that? How does that work?
I think you've been through enough of these to know that the applicant has people that they bring to speak on various components of the project.
Sure, when they're experts.
And I assume that that is what's happening here, Mr. LeCarry.
That's correct. I only have two that I would ask to speak, and the rest will be speaking as they are called.
Well, if they've signed up to speak on the hearing, they certainly will be heard when we hear from the public. But if someone is here to speak on the application specifically, on whether it's traffic or design or whatever it is, then they may speak now. Otherwise, they have to sign up and speak in the public portion.
Okay, I have two. I have James Netter, who's going to speak about the effect on the neighbors and the neighborhood, and Tim Mooney, if possible, to call him
And
now.
what is his area of expertise when it comes to this application?
He had to rezone his property recently to build his house. He's the owner of the Fire on the Ferries.
Yeah.
And he's also a homeowner there.
Okay, so town attorney, I would just like to defer to you. Would that come under this portion or in public portion?
I mean, I think Mr. LeCarry can ask Mr. Netter questions. I think Mr. Mooney can then, present whatever information he would like to present to the board after Mr. LeCarry is done.
During the public portion as part of Mr. LeCarry's presentation.
I mean, do you have specific questions for Mr. Mooney?
Mr. Mooney is going to give his perspective of the development. We can wait if that helps, but Mr.
Yeah, I think it's probably better if you ask Mr. Netter questions as a real estate expert, and then have Mr. Mooney speak during the after you conclude your application.
During the public portion, I've asked any of my speakers, I've asked to limit it to 3 minutes so that.
Well, there is no choice in that matter. It is 3 minutes that they have to speak.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor.
Okay. Mr. Netter?
Good evening, everyone. So I guess the purpose for me, of course, is I'm James Netter, Netter Real Estate, and I've lived in the area all my life, and I'm a realtor. So I sell homes on the mainland, and we also have a real estate office in Ocean Beach, and we sell homes from, let's say, Kismet to Davis Park. And as from what I can see, it seems to me that anytime we have improvements of any type for any type of a property like this, there always would be an improvement in desirability. And in that desirability, we would find that ourselves would be saying, well, it doesn't necessarily be for more rent for all of the individuals that live in the community, or maybe it would be for a higher sales price. But in this case, since we're looking at a property that's going to be redeveloped and increased in its desirability, that really is what drives real estate values. So in my mind, I can wholeheartedly support the redevelopment of the Botel. And I'm familiar with the quality of work that Dwayne Dizu has done in the past. I'm familiar with the quality of work that they're intending on doing here. I've seen the plans. I like the plans, the nature of the work. I see the clientele improvement that could occur from that desirability of an upscale market. It always creates higher prices. So whether they wanted to rent their home or whether they wanted to sell their home, anytime that you have something such as this is going to increase values. And of late, it's been pretty amazing when you see all of the renovations that are going on throughout many of the communities. And I can speak for Ocean Beach for the Palms Hotel and all of the improvements that they've made in bringing a better clientele. When I say a better clientele, I am speaking to Tom LeCarry's discussion of groupies and people that are at group rentals. A family coming to the Botel will be better suited to use the facilities of the entire community. And so for me, I believe that the destination becoming more appealing will benefit the entire community of Kismet. And that's pretty much what I have to say regarding the value. If anybody has any questions of me, particularly, I'm here for you.
Thank you. All right, I think that wraps it up for you, right, Mr. LeCarry?
Yes, that's.
All right, so if at this point, anyone on the board has any specific questions of the applicant, otherwise let's hear from planning. Are there any questions? Okay, great. Sean, if you would, please, from the department's perspective on this particular application.
Sure. Thank you, Supervisor Carpenter, members of the board. As stated by the applicant, he is requesting that the zoning be changed to make the existing hotel a conforming use and expand its gross floor area. This is a departure from the zoning change that the town board made back in 1960. The Fire Island National Seashore has reviewed the application in accordance with town procedures, and they have issued no objection to the proposed expansion. Kismet is a unique Fire Island community where the benefits of a niche use like this need to be weighed against the increased bulk on the site. It is the staff's understanding that the applicant is actively engaging the Kismet community, which may ultimately affect over how the building could look and how tall it could potentially get, should the board ultimately approve this application. To that end, it may make sense for the board to reserve decision to review any future changes to the building's architecture, if that seems to be the direction that the applicant is taking with this. So with that, I'm here if you have any questions.
Are there any questions of the department at this point?
I have a question.
I have a question too, Sean.
So Sean, have we ever in the past approved an application without having the architectural renderings sort of buttoned up and finalized? Because I think we have.
We have in certain cases. We generally try to button it up. It's just that in this instance, it could significantly alter the look. So, I know that was a concern raised by a number of local community members. It's a suggestion by the staff. It's, certainly not binding on the town board if they want to move ahead, subject to planning staff review.
Thank you.
Councilman Cochran?
Sean, Commissioner Meyer, he is our FEMA representative for the town, correct?
That's correct.
The counselor in his proceedings talked about they are just shy of the FEMA location of 7 feet plus 2 feet. They're at 8 feet. They got to go to 9 feet to get the FEMA approval. Is that correct?
That's my understanding. Yeah.
So that changes the whole design. This hotel has to be raised.
May I jump in, Mr.
No, you don't know, Tom. Sorry, this is my time. You get to respond back.
You'll
So-
have an
so-
opportunity, Mr. LaCarrie, let the councilman finish. You'll have an opportunity when it's your turn.
Thank you.
So without seeing these artists, you know, the architect's renditions, we don't know how they're gonna make that less than a foot rise of this structure. Is that correct?
Right. I mean, I haven't viewed the surveyor certification. It's something that we would review with probably our building director, the zoning division, as well with Commissioner Meyer, just to verify to what extent the structure might need to be raised. And again, that's also pending on how much, in dollar amounts that the structure is going to be improved. So we don't
Because
have,
if we relax this one structure, that means that anybody else is shy a foot around the whole town of Ice, around any kind of coastal area, we're gonna have to give them the right to not agree with FEMA is requiring by us, right?
it's possible.
Okay, thank you.
If you could please clarify that, Sean.
Well,
Some of the correspondence that I saw said that it does not trigger, doesn't meet the threshold for it to be elevated.
I did get a chance to speak with the building director prior to the hearing. And what he indicated was that determination of the improved value of the structure is made at the time of the building permit application, where we'll have an appraised value of the existing structure and a contractor's estimated cost of the improvements. And based on that amount, the building division will make a determination whether or not it is FEMA compliant. We don't have those amounts as part of this application. We generally don't ask an applicant to fully engineer either their site plan or their building permits or plan.
Sean, I'm sorry, Madam Supervisor, may I ask the planner a question, please?
Let me just make sure that Councilman Cochran is done with his questioning. Are you, John?
Yes, Supervisor.
Okay, thank you. Jim, go ahead.
Sean, I just want to make sure I understood what you just said. So we could ultimately grant this change of zone. And if the applicant files the building permit and it turns out that the applicant is not in compliance with FEMA requirements, the permit will not be granted despite the fact that the change of zone has been granted tonight. Is that what I understood that you just said?
The way the covenants are written now, it is my opinion that it would need to go back to the town board, because if he can't raise a structure or if he can't build the structure as it's being presented to you, he would need to modify the covenants to reflect the whatever proposed architectural changes or heights that aren't in compliance with whatever covenants are adopted by this town board. So, there's two ways of doing this. It's approving it now with the understanding that it's possible the design could drastically change, or the board can opt to reserve decision if they're approving the application and waiting to see what the structure could ultimately look like if it's drastically altered, such as, half a second story or a partial second story.
Jim, does that answer your question? Councilwoman Bergen?
So Sean, if we approve this now, then he can go before the building department. I would hate to see an applicant go before a building department, pay for all the architectural renderings, all of this, and then us come back with a no. But if we gave a yes tonight, then he can go forward to the building department and then continue his process, correct?
Correct. But again, if he's required to raise it in such a way that it violates the covenants, he may have to appear back before the town board.
I understand that.
Okay, if there are no further questions for the department, we have a number of speakers. Why don't we hear from them, and then we can go back to the applicant and or the department if necessary before we move.
Okay, I've moved in Tim Mooney.
Okay, great. Mr. Mooney, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Tim Mooney. I live at 23 East Lighthouse Walk in Kismet. And I'm a property owner in Kismet, also a business owner in Kismet. And I think Tom left out the best part of Kismet, which is the ferries, the pizza place, and my wife's store. So I just wanted to get that in there. That's part of the business community down on the waterfront. And for purposes, we have adjoining property to the proposed site here. And I support the change in zoning to allow for the addition of the lofted bedrooms that they're talking about here. And I've always viewed as rezoning as a way to fix things that have gone on from the past, present, and future. I've in fact rezoned the property that I have in Kismet and properties that I have in Bayshore as well. And it's a way to catch up and make things whole for both the property owner and the town itself. So, I think getting this thing rezoned so it can exist as it does today is important. Additionally, the bedroom loft is really not changing any of the occupancy requirements, and it's really shows a commitment from the ownership team of what they want to do in Kismet and how they want to approach it. So they're not getting any more occupancy for that location, and they're willing to invest a significant amount of money to do so. This all will add to the community. I think between the town, the ownership, and the community, there's an opportunity to establish some long-term rules, whatever those happen to be, for covenants and restrictions. And I believe reasonable people can come together and come up with some reasonable answers for this. Elevation aside, because we can't substitute for that. And I think the ownership's willingness is yet another benefit to the community as a whole for improvement. And as far as the use of the property as it is today, the only time I know anybody's there is at night when the lights are on in the different rooms. So it really hasn't added a lot of noise or complexity or rowdiness to the community at all. I think the things that the ownership is trying to accomplish with the type of clientele they're looking for, I think they're spot on. It's good for everybody. It's good for the community. And I support it. And I'm really excited to see what the final set of plans are going to look like. And I look out my window every day and I see that building. So the investment they've made has been outstanding. And if you go inside, my daughter did all the interior decorating. So just to throw that out at you well. But again, I'm in full support. I think this is a low impact project for the community. I think it improves everything. And that's it. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mooney. Next speaker.
I'm promoting to panelist Don Ahern.
Mr. Ahern,
Yes, can you hear me?
we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. I live at 80 West Lighthouse Walk in close proximity to the Botel. I, along with some of my neighbors, have written multiple letters of objection, which seem to have fallen on the deaf ears of the planning board. Some of us have hired Gerard Glass, an attorney, to actually do the legal research the planning department and planning board failed to do. This has been outlined in a letter to you, which I asked to be added to the record. The value argument is really a silly argument. We already own property on the beach. This is strictly a quality of life issue for us. It's not about money. Recently, some of us have met with the applicant, and we are trying to work out a compromise where the objecting homeowners file restrictive covenants to limit the impact of the Botel to the surrounding homeowners. We seem to be close to an agreement on this. If this can be worked out, I will withdraw my my objections to approve the application. There's still some major concerns to be worked out on a town level. The first is the high water mark needs to be established by the DEC or someone qualified to do so. We should not be relying on John Mayer, a surveyor from Bayshore, to establish the high water mark. I don't believe he's qualified in this area. The reason for this is the property is very close to being at the minimum square footage for the proposed zoning change. So I feel it's important that that gets double checked. The other major concern that we still have is the elevation and the height. We are in objection to any gable roof design. Everyone that I have spoken with, should this get approved, is in favor of a flat roof in the design of the original building, which is 165 feet wide. We keep talking about height, but we don't talk about height and width. When you take a 165-foot building and then make it 28 feet tall, it's a monster. It's a monstrosity, actually. What our goals as a community are is to keep this at a minimal impact. So keeping the building as low as possible is paramount to us. Raising the building more than a foot or two is also a deal breaker. If this building has to be raised up where it becomes something like a 2.5 or 3-story building, that's really a deal breaker and will be an eyesore for us. You know, I'm not really even sure why the planning board has been so insistent on this gable roof design in the first place. None of them have been out here to view the property and the surroundings as it relates to this application. I do thank you, Supervisor Carpenter, and the other council people who have been out here to visit our community recently. The most troubling part for me is that this process has come this far without the planner, the planning commissioner, or any member of the planning board coming out to visit the subject property or the surrounding homes in connection with this application. I find it very troubling that the planning board is entrusted to make these recommendations and decisions that affect us when they cannot even be bothered to come out here and visit the site and view our neighborhood, you know, let alone even do the legal research on this application. You know, and the big emphasis here is that this application is not a matter of right. It's not an as of right application. A zoning change is a legislative act that should be taken way more seriously than it has been up to this point. And I hope as a board that you do that. And I would ask that you take a reserved decision tonight so that these restrictive covenants can be worked out and that we could maybe withdraw some of the our objections to this application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Gary Leone has been promoted to panelist.
Gary, you may begin. Name and address for the record, please.
Let's see if we can help him.
Mr. Leone?
Okay.
All right, why don't you bring in the
Try to
next?
find him, and instead Dana DeRuva.
Mr. Ruvo?
She's there.
Oh, there she is. Okay. If you could just unmute, please.
I'm trying. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Is
You're
that
good.
better? Thank you.
All right, you have 3 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Dana DeRuvo and I live at 10 Bay Walk in Kismet, which is just east of the Botel. And I've been coming to Kismet since 1972. Is that okay? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Since 1972, when Councilman Cochran's sister Betsy and I were mother's helpers together out here. So been coming out here a very long time. Before buying the home that we now presently have, which faces the marina. So just to give you a perspective for those of you that may not know 10 Bay Walk specifically, my family and I rented Unit 9, which is in the bulkhead, which is owned by the D'Souza. So we were their tenant also. And during those 2 years when we rented from them, they were very responsible and very easy to rent from, and just had a great relationship and really developed a friendship with them. So I found them very easy. The noise concern coming from the Botel is not something that is even on my radar. As you know, from my home, I get the noise from the marina, the Kismet Inn, and what was the surfs out. Never, ever have I had a problem with the Botel, either before or after the D'Souza owned it. So I don't think that's going to be an issue at this point. I think they're very conscientious, responsible homeowners and only want to see a quality of life improved here in Kismet. And it certainly, I think, has improved our property value with the work that they've done at this point. So I give them my support for whatever it's worth. And I'd like to just see it continue. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Is Mr. Leone available now?
He is. He has his hand up.
Okay, great.
Hi, can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, I apologize.
No problem. You may begin. You
That's
have
all
2
right.
minutes.
Madam Supervisor on the board, thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Gary Leone. I am speaking as a homeowner, and currently I am in contract with my wife to purchase the land adjacent to the Botel. I just have a couple of concerns. Only residents within 200 feet were notified by mail. I think when the zoning change actually affected the entire community. Most homeowners don't know the difference between going from a CAA to a GSE. The zoning change, I believe, only benefits the hotel and the businesses of Kismet and not the homeowners. There will be more pedestrian traffic, noise, garbage, and possibly even more EMS call. I just ask, what is the rush to do this, and why not wait and see what the season brings and if any issues arise? The Botel is now going from a seasonal rental with many past renters who have been there for over 20 years. Some actually bought homes in the community, and now we're going to a long-term, somewhat daily rentals and now to weekly rentals, and from the beginning of May and now until the end of October. Why did the board recommend changing the initial plans from a loft to a second-story building with gabled roofs? I would ask, like Don did, for this board to visit Kismet and actually look at what a 28-foot building that is over 160 feet long look like on a bayfront. It was also mentioned that other structures being taller than the proposed change to the Botel, including Tim Mooney's house and the triple decker. My concern is those are private homes and not a structure that can hold up to 40 people. Dwayne and Tom were recently sent a list of our concerns. And like Don said, also, we are hoping to work this out and that the board reserves their decision until we can come to an agreement. As Tom mentioned before, I'm also on the board of fire commissions. Dwayne and Paul came into our meeting on June 11th at the firehouse. He answered our questions, he addressed our concerns, and right now the Board of Fire Commissioners is neither opposing or endorsing the zoning change. As president of the KCA, I am saying the same.
Of other applications this evening.
Yes,
Hi. Is repetitive. Please, keep it to some new information. Who's the next speaker?
Hi, good evening, Ellen Miller. I'll be very short and brief. I'm a 14-year homeowner in Kismet where I'm a voter and a taxpayer. And I just want to simply comment that upzoning a parcel of land in any community on Fire Island, in my opinion, makes no environmental or civic sense. Fire Island is a delicate ecology. It's an overloaded infrastructure, and above all, it's a national park. So I sincerely hope there is an alternate solution for the developer other than a zoning change. Thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Jacob Purdy.
Can you hear me?
We can, Jacob. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Jacob Purdy. I'm the owner of Beach and Vine Wines and Spirits on the other side of town. I'd just like to say that I support the application. What Dwayne and his partners have done to the property has been phenomenal. But more importantly, what I wanted to just add is 3 years ago, I also had a controversial change of zone application, but working with the town and the neighbors, coming up with some covenants and restrictions seemed to appease concerns, and it's worked out fine ever since. I hope that the same thing could happen for Dwayne in this situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jacob.
Carrie Canova Turner.
Go ahead, Carrie, if you would, please unmute. You're still muted.
Okay, I think I'm there. Thank you very much. Good evening to the board. My name is Carrie Canova Turner, and I've been spending my summers in Kismet for over 35 years. 20 of those years were spent renting with my family in the Botel. We lived in Unit 1 with my family of 5, plus my grandmother, many weekends. And to say that we were cramped would be an understatement. Adding an additional room with just the sleeping arrangements would be such an incredible addition to the Botel. And I have to tell you, witnessing the destruction over the years since my family has moved out has been incredibly heartbreaking. And to say that it was an eyesore over the last few years would be an understatement. I've seen the gorgeous renovations inside the units, and also the park-like grounds that Dwayne has created at the Botel are just incredible and are adding so much beauty to the community. I have no doubt that any additional space that would be added to the Botel would be well thought out with the community's best intentions and increase the beauty of the property and the community. And I just appreciate having these few moments to speak about a space that I'm so passionate about, and that is one of my most favorite places. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carrie. Next speaker.
William Shepland.
William, you may begin. Go ahead, William.
Good evening. My name is William Shepland. I've grown up spending my summers as a resident in Fire Island, not a homeowner yet. And now that I'm in my adult life, I still do. In all those summers, at least once a summer and maybe more, you would look over at the Botel building and wonder why the waterfront property just sat there and laying waste. And for the first time in my 20 plus years of being out at the beach, I'm happy that's not a question I or anyone else will ask anymore. The Botel is not only providing a high quality place for a younger generation of friends, family, and others, but it has also been a beautification of the downtown for the first thing that people see when they cross the bay and get off the ferry, and the surrounding towns as well. The Botel only adds value to the town as a whole. And as I would like to call myself a future homeowner in Kismet, I welcome and support the change of zoning, the expansion, and the further betterment of our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
I'm promoting Dawn Madsen to the panel.
John, you may begin.
See if we can help.
Go ahead, John.
It's Dawn.
Oh, Dawn, I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. Dawn, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Okay. go
Okay,
ahead.
sorry
No
about
problem.
that. Sorry. I'll make it quick. I'm not going to bore you with my history in Kismet. I've been there for a long time. Right now, I'm in Good Samaritan Hospital. This is my nurse. Fabulous. This issue is so important to me that I signed up to speak from, my ICU bed. So I just want to very quickly go over some of the points that other people have made. Yeah, I love Dwayne too. Everybody loves Dwayne. He's a nice guy, and he's done a hell of a job with the Botel. With that being said, this is nothing personal at all for me. I think he's a great guy. But I just like to go over some of the statements that some of the people have made here, because I'm not in favor of Botel or this zoning change. I think it's extremely important to look very carefully at this before it is approved on what seems to be a whim. So, okay, from the beginning indicated where commercial runs all the way across from the east to the west. The east side of Kismet is Sea Bay, which is not a commercial area. It's little yacht clubs. So he was a little incorrect about that. Then when he was talking about group houses, I think what people are concerned about in town is exactly going back to the bad old days when you have a hotel and a bunch of people milling around looking for something to do. We have enough in Kismet, which I think, Ms. Carpenter, you already know. Can say whatever he wants about what the future use is going to be for the Botel, but there's no guarantee that they can attract 25-year-olds, that they can attract only affluent people. I mean, it smacks of elitism anyway, but beyond that, there's certainly no one that can say, oh, this will be who we're going to have stay at our place going forward. Okay, the second guy, James Netter, the expert that I've never met in Kismet, claims that my house value will go up. I just paid an extraordinary amount of money for an empty lot adjacent to the Botel property, the real property. And the real estate agents that I spoke to have already told me my values will probably not go up. And in fact, I'm wondering if James Netter would like a Holiday Inn to him, because he doesn't really know what this Botel / boarding house can become in the future. Not now, but in the future. Okay, Trish Bergen just want Dwayne to have to spend the money for architectural drawings, but my husband and I have to spend the money for architectural drawings before we can get a residential permit from the town of Ice to build a single family dwelling, which is what we were told we could build in that space. We did our research. Hotel has never been a hotel zone. People have tried to make it one, but the town rightfully has never approved that use. Mooney, who I love also, claims that his property is adjoining, but he's actually a bit north and to the east. He doesn't mind. Why would he mind extra occupancy? It benefits his business, his wife's business.
John, if you could
and as he said, his daughter signed the rooms. Sorry?
If you could wrap up, your time is up.
Yep. Wrapping up. I believe the Botel will be high impact. We're a very small town in a very small community. We already have litter problems, noise problems, people problems. We're too close to Robert Moses, and I don't think it's a good idea. And I implore the town to take a look at the history and to really give this a lot of thought. Thank you.
John, and we hope you feel better. Next speaker.
Thanks.
James Bruno.
James?
Yes, hi, Supervisor on the board.
Great.
Hi.
Begin.
Good. This is James Bruno. I'm a resident of Kismet since 2013, not quite as long as everyone else, but I'm catching up. I do support the application to add a second story and the change in zoning. I think it'll look 100% better than what is there now, and also believe that this improvement, along with all improvements that happen to be being done in Kismet, will be good for the value of my investment, at least as a homeowner. I think the Botel is a great place. I think it's a good spot for me to have my guests and when we have our family outings and our get-togethers. So my house is not overcrowded. I think it'll be a positive for the community, and I do support it. But of course, I also do hope that everyone, that this does get worked out and everyone is satisfied. So it is the best of both worlds for everyone. I know it's not always that easy, but that's what my hope is. And but I do support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that's everyone's hope.
Yeah.
Next speaker.
That's all for the people who have indicated they would like to speak on the application.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So if the applicant would want to come back and briefly address any of the concerns that you feel you need to.
Yeah, I addressed most of them in my presentation. I appreciate the board listening. The only one thing I would like to point out, which is a real life example, the property at 82 East Lighthouse, which is 3 parcels away from the applicant and actually across the street diagonally to the south from me, sold for $735,000 approximately 6 months ago. The property 2 doors to the north, which is adjacent to the applicant's property, is now in contract for $760,000. So the effect on the value really contradicts what I believe Dawn has indicated, and is more in line with what Mr. Netter has indicated. And the people buying are also from Kismet, that are buying 90 East Lighthouse. They're also from Kismet, and they are aware of the development that has been proposed. The only other thing I want to address briefly is that I want to emphasize that, I know Mr. Cochran raised the issue. We do not want to raise this building. We intend to stay within the 50% rule. The 50% rule, again, is that substantial improvements occur when the improvement or the value of the improvement exceeds 50% of the market value of the structure before the improvement. We're going to live within that 50% rule, even if it means a substantial alteration of the plans or of the number of units that have the bedroom above, or the location of the units, or the design. So we will be within that 50% rule and will not have to raise. And that could be, and as I spoke to Don about that, we could put that in the covenant. We don't want to raise this building. It economically makes 0 sense from anyone's perspective. I don't care how much money you sink into it. And we're going to live by that 50% rule. Yeah, and Dwayne does feel comfortable that what we're proposing will remain there, but again, that's way below. But we need to address that with the planning and the building department. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone from the board have any other comments or questions for either the applicant or the department at this point? I have something I just want to check with JR. So hearing the question about the specific plans not being finalized, and a number of speakers indicating, even though they were not totally supportive, but looking at coming to some sort of a compromise. The fact that I heard the applicant's rep talk about a commitment, putting it in the covenants to not wanting to raise the building, they weren't going over that 50% threshold. Would it be possible for us at this point, and a number of speakers asked for us to adjourn or reserve or table it tonight, to close the public hearing, make a motion to close the public hearing and recess the application so that all of these covenants and concerns can be addressed. And from the department's point of view, that anything that would be done would be confining or condensing the application and not adding to. That if that were to be the case, then it would have to come back. Does that make sense?
Well, I think, in any event, if we close the public hearing and we don't make a decision, it's going to have to come back.
Yeah, come back for decision.
Right.
Yeah. Based on everything that's worked out with the department and the community, and certainly the applicant.
Right.
I have a question on that.
Yes, Councilwoman.
So here's the problem. When you're talking about construction over on the beach, there are only a certain number of months that you're able to operate over there. So if there's no meeting in July, then he loses July. Then we come back in August, he loses August. I would rather see a vote and then let him go forward on what it is that he's applying for. At least he knows that when he's going in for his building applications and his drawings and all, that at least they have some sort of an idea of whether or not he's even going to get it.
Mr. LaCarrie?
Yeah, I just want to briefly, just one sentence. I am going to be asking for an approval tonight, but without the working plans. We will be working on the plans. We will be working with the town. We'll be working with the town attorney, with the planning department, and of course, the residents to achieve what is needed. But we just would like to get this through as the change of zone tonight so that we can start our architectural work that we need to do for a permit ultimately.
Well, to the councilwoman's point of coming back in August, since there is no July meeting, doesn't the possibility, I can't see that without the plans in place and the covenants that have to be hammered out, that this is going to happen in a month or even 2 months. But even if it were to happen in a month, we do have a town board meeting in July. And could not this decision item, because it wouldn't require a public hearing if we close the hearing, this decision item could be put on the agenda in July.
Supervisor, you can't build structures full on in the summertime in Fire Island. So that premise
I'm aware of
that he's
that.
going to lose time. Yeah, so that right out the door. I can't vote on something that I don't know what it's look like, because Tom, you did a great presentation, but that 50% is going to be hard to meet. When I was talking to Ron Meyer and Sean, this project, and I'd like to see it go forward, but I can't vote on it because of that issue, that 50%, because you're going to affect, if you have to raise it, you're going to have to raise it because we can't lose our FEMA credibility for the town of Iceland.
Well, we're gonna definitely fall within that 50%, even if it means reducing the number of units that have. And I also spoke to Sean and to Ron, even if it means reducing the number of units that have the bedroom upstairs. We're gonna satisfy everybody that we possibly can. We know we're never gonna satisfy everyone, but we're going to do our darndest best to work with everyone in connection with this. We're all friends. Everybody that, even my friends, my friend Dawn, we love her dearly and wish her the best. We have our jobs to do, and we're all friends, and whatever the decision is made will have the least possible impact on West Lighthouse as we possibly can do.
The planning board already approved.
Okay,
We had.
hearing no other questions or comments, I would entertain a motion.
I would like to make a motion, Supervisor, to close the public hearing and adopt this and grant this application.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to close the public hearing and approve the application with the understanding that all of the covenants and conditions are going to be hammered out. And we have a motion in a second. I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Supervisor, I was in favor of reserving because of the fact that there's so many loose ends. And as Mr. LaCarrie said, we have jobs to do. And the fact that there are so many unknowns, I feel like we need to hammer this out a little bit more before I can cast my vote.
All right, so how about we alter the motion then? That fails for that particular motion. I'll make the motion to close the public hearing and reserve decision. And I would like to put it out there, if everything can be meted out, that I would be more than willing, as long as it legally is permissible, to put it on.
Madam Supervisor, if I will, just for formality, can we get a vote from the other people on my motion first before we go to your motion?
Certainly. We had a motion by Councilwoman Bergen and a second by Councilman O'Connor, and all those in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I'll abstain. So we have 2 in favor. The motion fails. I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing, that the applicant, working with the department, hammers out, and still working with the community, hammers out the code amendments And I would make a commitment that if everything is all settled and done and ready to go in July, we would put it on the agenda of our town board meeting, since there is
Yeah,
no
motion.
change of zone.
I second that motion, Supervisor. And
Yeah,
I want to thank Tom, the Kismet community. As you know, I worked and lived there. And this project's got to be right, Tom. It's got to be right. We all got to feel comfortable. And I know DeSuze will do the right thing, but let's get something in front of us that we can get our hands on, all right?
Right, thank you.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone. And we will go on to the next item on the agenda.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Item number 2, TC 5371, Philip Camp. I'd ask the town clerk, Olga Murray, to please read the hearing notice.
Thank you.
Olga is muted, so we can't hear the hearing notice being read.
Yeah.
Olga, you muted yourself.
Thank you. Notice is hereby given that the town board of the town of Islip will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, June 16th, 2021 via Zoom webinar and will be streamed live over the internet on the application of Philip Camp, PC 5371. Applicant requests a modification of covenants and restrictions associated with TC number 4536 in order to permit a church. Site plan modifications may be required as part of this application. The environmental impacts will also be assessed on this property located in the East Islip School District on the northeast corner of Sunrise Highway Service Road and Washington Avenue, Islip Terrace, Town of Islip, Suffolk County, New York. Town Board, Town of Islip, Olga Murray, Town Clerk.
Thank you. Mr. Camp, you may proceed. Could you, there you go. Go
Good
ahead.
evening. I will try to be short. I'm here today to ask permission for us to revise the covenants and restrictions on the property. Oh, I'm sorry, I got to give you my name. Philip Camp of PKAD Architecture and Design, 107 Center Street, Bayshore, New York, 11706. We're here asking for permission tonight for the property located at 2765 Sunrise Highway and Islip Terrace to have the covenants and restrictions revised from the current situation of allowing a restaurant only to change that to allow it to be a church. The proposed renovations do not violate any zoning regulations. We will be within the parking regulations and no variances are required. We met with the planning board. We had 2 planning board hearings and made modifications based on the public hearings, and the planning board approved the application to move it to you guys for approval. And that is pretty much it.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant before we hear from the department? All right, go ahead, Sean.
Thank you, Supervisor Carpenter. The existing covenants require that the use of this property be limited to a restaurant. That's generally not how today's standard covenants are written, as it precludes less intense uses such as offices. The proposed church, as stated by Mr. Camp, meets its parking requirements, and otherwise the site conforms to the layout that was approved for the prior restaurants that were occupying this location. So with that, the staff has no objection to the layout or the proposal by the applicant. I'm here if you have any questions.
Thank you. Was there outreach done to the community? Are you aware, Sean?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Does anyone have any questions for the department? Any
Sean,
questions?
I got a question for you. What are we gonna do with all the Picassos that won't have graffiti art on that building?
They, hopefully there's not another abandoned building that they can go to.
Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
But we have 4 people that would like to be heard.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. I didn't.
That's all right.
aware of
That's
that.
all right.
All right, go ahead. Let's, we are ready to vote, so
The first speaker is Janice Galley.
go ahead, Janet. You have 3 minutes.
You'll just have to unmute yourself, Janice.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, Janet. Janet.
Okay, sorry, this is not easy to do. Okay, so I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Janice Galley. I'm a homeowner in the community. I was notified via mail about the motion to turn this into a proposed church instead of a restaurant. I believe I was only notified because I'm within the how many 100 feet. I've been living here for 17 years in the neighborhood, and I have a few questions and concerns. I just want to note that I was only aware of one planning meeting thus far. This second meeting, this was the only other notification that I received. So if there were 2 planning meetings that I was supposed to be notified of, then that did not happen. So my concerns are about the upkeep of this property. That's the first concern. This group has owned the church restaurant for 1 year, and they have not been able to keep up with this place. I'm not impressed with their upkeep. Even after our last virtual meeting, nothing has improved. The fence is in disrepair. As one of the councilmen referred to, there's constant graffiti on the building. It's not kept up with. The landscape is overlooked, often overgrown. In fact, I almost called about it, and they were very lucky that they actually mowed the lawn this weekend, because I was not happy. It was getting long again, and we're getting tired of calling about these people. Last time at the last meeting, I asked a few questions. I asked if this was an existing church, and I asked what the name was and the location, and I was never given a name or a location of this church, because what I wanted to do was research if they're good neighbors to whoever they are near at the moment, because they're not being good neighbors to us. The only thing I was told is that it is a non-denominational Christian church. My second concern is about traffic and parking. I understand they only need to have 45 parking spaces for 145 or 47 parishioners, but that does not seem like enough to me. I know that we will have people parking on the 2 side streets, since they cannot park on Sunrise Highway. They will park on Washington Avenue, and they will park on Islip Boulevard. We have children playing on these roads. The corner's already dangerous, and without any kind of sign, this is not going to work for us. The last or 2 more things I have. One is that the lighting is inadequate. Some of these church services are in the evening, and from what we were told, they're not planning on doing any renovations to this church. They're simply taking the existing building and making it work for them. They absolutely need more lighting if they're going to be having people there in the evening when many of these services were taking place. The graffiti's happening during obviously evening hours, and there's nobody to look out for it. We had homeless people squatting on the property. Several of the people that are neighbors are renters, therefore they were not notified of this meeting, and they can't speak or didn't get an invitation to speak. But I will let you know that they're not pleased with this situation. They are part of a charity organization that owns the 3 houses behind us. And
you could wrap up, please, Janice.
Okay. My last concern was about outdoor functions. I know I brought that up at the last meeting. If they're allowing outdoor functions, that will add to the parking problems. It'll create noise, and that'll be an issue. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Alexandra Clark.
Hi. So I concur with Janice about the upkeep of this building. The fence is completely broken. There's graffiti everywhere. It is on Sunrise Highway. I don't see where they're going to park. I was not notified about this meeting at all. A neighbor told me about it, and I live right on the corner. I live closer to the building than Janice does, and I was not notified at all. I am a homeowner. I am not a renter. I am very concerned about the parking situation already. This is a busy block. I do have 2 children. There are lots of children in the neighborhood. We are very concerned about the traffic and the parking. There is definitely not enough parking on the plot for as many parishioners as there will be. And like Janice said, this building is not being kept. The property is not being kept. Everything is falling apart.
Thank you, Alexandra. Next speaker.
Beth Becerra.
Beth? Go ahead, Beth, if you would unmute, please. If you could hit the unmute button, Beth. Great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Beth Becerra. I'm a homeowner. I live directly across the street from where this plan for the church is going to be. I share the same concerns as Janice and Alex. I am concerned about the noise. I'm concerned about the parking. Right now, they have to, I understand that it's about 147 members, and they seem to only have a max of maybe 40 parking spaces, which is not going to be conducive and enough parking for all of the members. And I'm concerned because that people are going to be parking on the side streets directly in front of my house. I'm concerned about the noise level. I actually work as a registered nurse at nighttime, so I usually need to sleep during the day, and I'm concerned about how much noise there will be. Also, as there are a lot of children who in the area, and I'm concerned about the site, the ability to see them when they're outside playing, that there will be a lot of traffic in the area. I'm concerned that the corner of Sunrise Highway leading onto Washington Avenue has been a site for multiple car accidents. I actually had somebody drive straight into my fence at some point a few years ago, because people just seem to drive very fast around that corner. I also am aware that there's been more vandalism in the building, outside of the building and within the building since the last meeting. There were multiple homeless people seen on the property outside. There's more graffiti outside, and I just don't think it's been kept up well at all.
All right, thank you very much, Beth. Are there any other speakers?
One last speaker, Philip Lyles.
Philip? Philip?
There he is.
Ms. Lyles?
Okay, I've unmuted.
Yes, you are. Could you state your name and address for the record?
My name is Samantha Thompson. I live at 2749 Sunrise Highway in Islip Terrace. I'm directly across the street from the building in question. I agree with all of my neighbors, and I've spoken to all of my neighbors in reference to the issues with the upkeep of the building. I've actually had to call the police on several people that have squatted in the building. I've had to call the town in reference to the graffiti. I've also spoken to the realtor that was in control of the building prior to that about the graffiti and letting him know that they've been like breaking the fence, going onto the property. And just recently, as a couple of months ago, there was a gentleman that pulled into my driveway to run into the building across the street to steal items out of the building because it was open, and then ran back across, threw them in his car and pulled off, and was telling me and my husband that he was working with the people with the building and they were coming to knock it down. Strange things constantly happen over there. We've also had, which is normal for Long Island, but we've had a lot of rodents, raccoons, things coming from that particular building at night, constantly. Even when there is no garbage out, there's rodents and things. I don't even let my kids sit out late if I'm not outside in the backyard, which I do have a gate for. And with concerns of the traffic, where they may be parking on Washington, wherein my house is also facing Washington, on the corner here, there's a lot of people that drive. Just as recent as a couple of days ago, a car almost jumped the curb to run right into my yard, wherein I've already had someone hit the curb and fly up into my yard and hit my house. So the traffic over here is very crazy, to wherein people miss this turn right here in front of this building on a constant. It's a regular thing over here. I've stood at the corner putting my kids on the bus early in the morning and see even commercial vehicles almost miss this corner and hop the curb to almost hit my house. So it's like I'm very concerned with the high volume of traffic, the late hours. I have a lot of school-age children in my home. The loud noise, it's going to be a lot. It's going to be almost somewhat of a hindrance on the community. I'm Catholic. I have nothing against any religion. I do go to a non-denominational church myself, but my concern is that where they're planning to put this right here is not going to be conducive or beneficial to any of the homes around it.
You could wrap up. Thank you. Thank you very much, Samantha.
Thank you.
That was it with the speakers?
Yes, it was.
Okay. I would ask the applicant to perhaps address some of these concerns that were raised by the neighbors. The fact that you've owned the property for a year and it's looked the way it has, can you answer why?
Well, I don't own it, but I could answer the logic behind it. I'm assuming they purchased essentially an abandoned building and are going for approval to renovate it. And that doesn't excuse painting over the graffiti, I guess. But in terms of the providing proper lighting and all that will be done as a part of this application to the specifications required by the town. So all that stuff will be brought up to code. As far as the items that we went through with planning to upgrade the property, we did talk about upgrading landscaping, going to the Department of Transportation to ask for permission to add plantings to Sunrise Highway. We're removing some of the concrete area to provide more landscaping, removing a shed to put in a dumpster enclosure, and moving some handicap parking to make it more accessible. The rest of the items we would be dealing with the building department and elevation review to find out exactly what the building department would like us to do to upgrade the building. In terms of the usage of the property, it's a much less labor and less intensive use. The church is not going to be there nearly as much as a restaurant. We have worked with planning, and they've revised the covenants and restrictions to not allow for outdoor gatherings, and also to shorten the allowable business hours to make it till 10 o'clock at night. I'm not sure what it would be in a restaurant situation.
Does anyone have any questions of the applicant or the department?
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
I'd like to bring the department back on, Sean, to the issue of outdoor functions that is in the covenants, that there would be no outdoor functions.
Don't believe they're written into the covenants. I know it would be problematic if they occupied any of the parking spaces. So to that end, if they did have outside functions.
I apologize. I thought we had discussed that at the last meeting.
could they be included in the covenants?
Yeah,
guess
I would think that they
Yeah.
would have to be based on the neighbors' complaints.
Not only the outdoor functions, but I don't see any, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
That's
I don't
okay.
see any restrictions on the hours of operation in the current covenants, but they could be included as you move forward towards site plan, correct, Sean?
That typically gets included at the time of the town board adoption. We can certainly entertain that and ask, the church what their hours are going to be.
I think the applicant has indicated the willingness to limit the hours of operation. Is that correct, Mr. Camp?
Well, yeah, currently I'm looking through them and it says between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. That's what's currently in the covenants and restrictions that I was emailed before the last hearing.
Is that 7 days a week?
That's not for the church use on the property though.
Oh, that's just in general.
Yeah, it sounds half-baked.
I had a couple questions, but I think.
Sure. Go ahead, Councilman O'Connor. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Sean, currently the property has a covenant restriction limiting it to restaurant use. So I remember going there when it actually was a restaurant, probably 3 times before the restaurant closed the last time it was there. The property has been vacant and in a terrible condition, as the neighbors have described, for many years. Obviously, the property owner has not been able to market this property as a restaurant, or we would see a restaurant there by now. We can keep it as a restaurant and keep the condition as it currently exists. But I think what this is looking to do is remove the restriction as the restaurant so that maybe we can get an improvement to the property. I know we as a town board have had a board up and clean up for this particular property, as the councilman has described. It's been on a town board hearing and a resolution because of the graffiti situation. So removing the restriction as a restaurant allows the property to move forward. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Are you done? Okay, Councilwoman Bergen?
Right, so I'm just concerned about the hours of operation, which, as the applicant described to me, goes on till 10 p.m. at night. I know my church isn't open till 10 p.m. at night.
Can I restate it? It wasn't that I was saying that they were operating to that. It's just the current covenants and restrictions state that those are the allowable operating.
Yeah, I don't know.
They're operating on Sundays.
Till 10 o'clock at night?
From like 2 to 6 in the afternoon. And then Tuesday through Thursday, I think it was 7 to 9.
Those are the only hours of operation?
I asked them when they would attend services, and that would be their typical hours of operation, other than, if they had some sort of special event, but that would be the normal. Like my church has an 8 o'clock and 11:30 service, and that's pretty much it. That's their normal weekly schedule.
Well, I think, if the last applicant was any indication, I think that if we're not buttoning up the CNRs before we, let it out the door, I think we need to figure out when those hours of operation are before we make a vote on this. And then my other question to Sean is, has this been operating as a church without it getting the proper permits?
Not that I'm aware of. I could check
It's
violations.
Okay.
it's been abandoned for years.
So to the question of this church, where are they located now and are they operating now?
They've been, I don't know how long they've been in operation, but they've been in operation for a while. They have, I think, about 65 members, and they've been renting a space somewhere in Islip. I'm not sure where.
So where did the 147 members come? You said 65.
That was based on the allowable square footage of the property and what would work in the building. So there's room for growth, and keep in mind that those 147 seats are also, it's not just individuals coming in their cars. A lot of times it's going to be husband, wife, and children. And then those people that are going to leave that service to use the other spaces, there's not additional people coming to use the ancillary spaces.
Are there any other questions or comments for the
Question for
applicant or the
Sean.
department? Sean, yes.
Sean, up in CI in Carlton Avenue, we had a law office converted to a church, I think a couple of years ago. And, there was a question by the neighborhood about, the parking in front of my house. They made a deal with the school district. Has this been, with Central Islip School District for having overflow parking? Now, this location down the street is East Islip Elementary and Middle School and High School. Is that something that the applicant looked into and possible overflow parking?
Not that I'm aware of. It'd be a little bit of a walk, but it's something he could explore potentially.
Because we're finding out with these churches, not heavy volume. I mean, there's services on the weekends, whatever. I mean, if this is Sunday church and they're operating during the week to help out the neighborhood and the community and their members, this is not heavy volume parking. That's all I have.
I don't know how you park all those cars. But...
Yes,
We didn't look at
Pam?
overflow parking because we were within the guidelines.
Okay. Any other questions? Sean, did you have something?
Yes, I just want to answer the Councilwoman Bergen's question. There are no use violations on the property. They all pertain to the maintenance and the appearance of the site.
Thank you, Sean.
Okay. What is the feeling here? Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to close the public hearing, issue a negative declaration, and adopt a resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
I am in favor also, but again, we just need to remind everyone to be cognizant of the issues raised by the neighbors.
I'll speak to them about getting some maintenance done in the meantime
Thank
while we're
you.
moving forward.
In the short term.
Yep, I appreciate your
Okay,
time,
thank
everyone.
you. So that was the motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved unanimously. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.
What are we waiting for?
I'm so sorry. My screen keeps fading in and out. Madam Clerk, if you would please read the hearing notice on application number 3, TC 5372, IA Holdings.
Certainly. Please take notice that the Town Board of the Town of Islip will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, June 16th, 2021 at 5 p.m. via Zoom webinar and will be streamed live over the internet at the Islip Town Hall, 655 Main Street on the application of TC 5372 IA Holdings LLC. Applicant seeks a change of zone from residence AAA district, business 3 district, and residence CA district in order to maintain a portion of the existing horse farm and redevelop the remainder of the parcel with 180 apartments. Applicant also requests a town board approval to utilize increased density permitted in the CA district pursuant to Town Code Section 68-173 Subdivision 1. Applicant further requests a town board special permit for a fast food restaurant in the Business 3 district pursuant to 68-302 Subdivision G. Site plan modifications are required as part of this application. The environmental impacts will also be assessed on this property located in the Brentwood School District on the northwest corner of Suffolk Avenue and Eastern Avenue, Brentwood, Town of Islip, Suffolk County, New York. Town Board, Islip, New York. Olga Murray, Town Clerk.
Okay, Mr. Bazell, if you will, please proceed.
Sure, and thank you, Madam Supervisor, members of the board. For the applicant, Joseph F. Bazell, the firm is Bazell, Blanda, Visconti, 535 Broad Hollow Road, Suite B4 in Melville. The application concerns a change of zone partially to CA for apartments and a horse farm, partially to Business 3 for a coffee shop. There are three components to the application. The first is keeping 5 acres as an equestrian riding center. The second is developing garden apartments. And the third is to develop a 2,500 square foot coffee shop. The proximity of this property to the Long Island Railroad presents a unique opportunity for transit-oriented development. The station is literally across Suffolk Avenue. It's a positive project for the property, for Suffolk Avenue, and for Brentwood. It will improve the property, it will improve the area, and provide an anchor for revitalization. Given its location across from the train station, its size at 17 acres, and with over 930 feet of frontage, it's a pivotal lot. The property is located on the north side of Suffolk Avenue at the intersection of Easton Avenue and across from the station. It has 17.01 acres of lot area with 936 feet of frontage on Suffolk Avenue and 529.85 feet on Easton Avenue. It widens out in the rear about halfway back. It is level and grade, no wetlands. It's not virgin woods. Almost the entire lot has been cleared, aside from some trees along Easton Avenue. There is an existing traffic light on Suffolk Avenue right in front of the property, which already serves the Long Island Railroad Brentwood Station. On the site right now is an existing horse farm. Those buildings are located in the northwest corner, and the remainder of the property gets little use. There is an old house towards Suffolk Avenue near the westerly line. Some decades ago, people would camp out on the grass and watch horse shows, but it's been a long time since that has occurred. The world has changed. The property has become worn out and out of date. You notice it more closely when you actually enter where those horse farm buildings are in the back corner. Across from the station is a perfect location for TOD housing. This will be an improvement to Suffolk Avenue, which is now a sprawling array of nondescript, largely commercial and industrial properties in need of upgrade. The project will be a big step towards improving Suffolk Avenue. It's the largest lot on it. To the west is on Suffolk Avenue is the Ross Healthcare Center. To the east is Easton Avenue. There are single-family homes located to the north. The first component is the horse farm. We are going to preserve 5 acres in the westerly portion of the property. Some of the buildings that are there now will be refurbished. Some of the buildings will be removed. There'll be a new riding center, a new parking area. The existing entrance to the horse farm will be preserved, so the horse farm will have separate access from the other two components of the application. There'll be improvements to the rings and the paddocks, and a horse trail will be installed, which runs on 2 sides of the CA apartments. The commercial component is located on Suffolk Avenue in the southwest corner of the property. So it is to the west of the existing traffic light. The traffic light will serve as the access point for that lot. The building has been reduced again from 6,000 square feet multi-tenant to a 2,500 square foot single tenant coffee shop. Covenants and restrictions already accepted by the applicant and proposed by planning limit the use of that property to a coffee shop. So there will be no other fast food that will go in on that site. The FAR on that site is 0.06. Side yards of 44 and 132 are well over the 10-foot requirement. The rear yard is 83.5 when 15 feet is required. We meet parking. In fact, when we reduced the building, we eliminated some of the paved spaces to increase our landscaping. Our landscaping is now at about 52%, so it's more than half the site and 2.6 times the requirement. Front yard landscaping is more than twice the requirement and a 9,553 square feet. The distance between the coffee shop and the nearest apartment building is over 306 feet. So it gives you a view corridor between those buildings into the rear where the horse farm is located. The horses have to be kept in the rear portion of the building because traffic from Suffolk Avenue is very disturbing to them. Turning to the third component, which is the residential component, transit-oriented housing directly across the street from the train station, an attractive residential community in a campus-like setting. Typically, transit-oriented housing is about 10 minutes from a train station. Here, it's literally across the street, and there is an existing traffic light there. So anyone entering or exiting the facility will be able to rely on that light as a controlled access point to get in and get out. There will be common facilities for the residents. They are centrally located, so they're in the middle of the center, designed to serve the residents and enhance their quality of life. Quality architecture and the commercial building architecture will match the residential building architecture. And another important point is there will be a sewer force main extension as part of this project. Brentwood has suffered because it doesn't have sewers. The force main will be brought up to this site, which would allow the possibility for other properties connecting to that system at that point. So that also improves the ability for nearby properties to be redeveloped in a positive fashion. Right now, the principal access point is at the light on Suffolk Avenue. There's one lane in and 2 lanes out. There is a long T or a throat when you enter before you would make a left to the coffee shop, and that is the only use of that property, or a right into the residential complex. The residential complex has parking sprinkled around for the convenience of the people who live there. There is landscaping, including a 35-foot wide berm along Suffolk Avenue. Along the rear, there is a landscape berm along the westerly line to give a little separation from the horse farm and also a little quiet for or additional privacy for the horses. There is, however, a walking trail which runs from the horse farm along the northerly line more than 25 feet or inside the landscape buffer, which runs to the rear and then running around into a loop along Eastern Avenue. The people who reside here can easily walk to the train, but if not, there's plenty of parking and they can come and go at a regulated intersection. The horse farm will maintain the existing access, so it will be separate from the commercial and the residential. It will also, and each area has its own parking. The residents have parking, the commercial space has parking, and the horse farm has parking, and it's even widened out to allow trailer parking back in the rear. At this point, to talk a little bit more about the issues of traffic, I'd like to ask Mr. Chick Voorhees to address the board.
Thank you, Mr. Gazelle. Mr. Voorhees?
Yes, project over. The board has a full understanding. For the record, my name is Voorhees with offices in Melville. I'm an environmental professional and I have 43 years of experience and I'm in front of the town board before. Assessment form and
Excuse me, could you please check your microphone because it is very difficult. You're coming across choppy and slurred and hard to understand.
I can speak slower. I'm not sure what
faster.
the problem.
Not slower.
Speak fast. Okay. I'll just see if we can said from an environmental standpoint, we have not identified impacts. From a planning standpoint, the site is well. It has proximity to the train stations and with planning principles. Project will retain the horse farm, which is the development includes mixed use with provides workforce housing and of land use in the area. Project is consistent in terms of superior design, location of development, needed housing, and minimization of impacts, as well as it will create 230 construction, as well as nearly 40 permit and also a significant time of full taxation. As was mentioned, the proper wastewater treatment to an existing tree water and public water supply would serve the site. There are no wetlands, and based on our analysis, no use or community services were identified. We did an impact study done by the engineers of Nelson with the expanded EAF. The study addressed Suffolk Avenue. The existing and a growth factor was added per DOT. Trip generation was determined for the project and with growth factors and any other planned project capacity analysis was prepared for the AM PM hours using the highway capacity manual methodology. These methods are recognized by traffic. Based on the analysis, after completion of the study will continue to operate at no build in the study periods that I mentioned. Minor changes in levels of Brentwood Road and Washington Avenue and Islip Avenue, Joshua's Avenue, will be mitigated with minor signal timing. As results of the traffic study, Nelson and Pope found that the project, the operation of the roadways and area. Please note also that the traffic study detailed use, which has now been reduced, so even less than what was studied. The findings of our support a negative declaration for this project. I believe plantation and has not objected to our findings, and you all. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board, the change of zone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Voorhees. Mr. Bazell, is that it?
Couple final comments. Just so it's clear, there was a full traffic study done as part of the environmental review on this matter. It was reviewed by the town's traffic consultant who accepted it and indicated it would not generate any problems. And also by the Suffolk County DPW that owns Suffolk Avenue. At the time it was prepared, the commercial building was bigger There were other tenancies in there. It was 6,000 square feet. But they were eliminated in the most recent round of revisions. So actually the traffic profile is actually more positive now even than it was before. In conclusion, proximity to the train station presents a unique opportunity for transit-oriented development. We have a positive project, positive for the property, positive for Suffolk Avenue, positive for Brentwood. The project will improve the property in the area and be an anchor for revitalization. And that includes bringing the forced sewer main up to the property. It's a pivotal lot from a developmental standpoint because of its location to the train station, but also for its size. It's it's the largest lot on Suffolk Avenue in this area, and because of its long frontage of over 930 feet. A client is investing millions of dollars in this property and in Brentwood and is pleased to be doing so. We think this is a very positive addition and will do a lot for this area. I also have, or I should have out there, my site engineer and my architect. If there are any questions, myself and Mr. Voorhees can answer.
Thank you very much. At this point, unless there are some pressing questions, why don't we hear from the department?
Thank you, Supervisor Carpenter. As stated by the applicant, this is an opportunity to provide a transit-oriented development near the Brentwood train station. The staff believes that the application complies with the preferred location criteria for the resident CA zone. A portion of the historic horse farm will be preserved, which is a positive component. Other benefits of this application include the potential sewering of businesses along Suffolk Avenue in downtown Brentwood, which can help improve the economic opportunity and diversity of this area. So with that, here if you have any questions.
Okay, are there any questions at this point? I think we do have some speakers on this.
I have some questions.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Councilman.
Mr. Bazell, specifically looking at the covenants and restrictions, looking at item 1B, it gives a description of your fast food restaurant that's going to include a drive-through component. And it sounds very much like some of the coffee shops that you've talked about that we see here and this board has seen before. In fact, it sounds very much like a particular brand of a coffee shop that this board has seen before. Do you know if a particular brand of the coffee shop has been selected by the developer at this time or is being planned by the developer at this time?
My client has signed no leases with any tenant, and though has interest from tenants in this site, but my client doesn't want to commit until he would have his approval, and tenants are reluctant to commit until the approvals are issued because they want to know when the space can be delivered to them, when they can open their doors.
So
there has been interest, there's been discussions, but it hasn't matured into a lease yet.
So the description in item 1B sounds an awful lot like a Starbucks. And that brings us to the covenant restriction number 5, drive-through queuing. We've seen some major issues with our drive-through queuing on our drive-through Starbucks here in our municipality. Can your traffic engineer or you speak to us? I noticed from your site plan that you've submitted, I'd be interested in hearing about the number of cars that will fit in the queuing if this is in fact going to turn into a drive-through Starbucks.
The queue right now, as it presently stands, holds 11. There is a bypass lane around the back as well. I mean, the answer is, since we made the building smaller, if we had to move some things around a little bit to increase that drive-through or even do a double drive-through, we could do that. We have the room. You can see on the site plan, there's a lot of room on the easterly side and also towards Suffolk Ave. So improvements can be relocated to expand that drive-through as part of site plan review if we needed to.
So you're aware, and I know your client is aware, that the covenant and restriction number 5 speaks about the town board reserving the right to remove the accessory drive-through after due public hearing, should it be determined that sufficient queuing cannot be provided on site. So in other words, you're aware of that. We have seen queuing issues with our drive-through Starbucks, and that's why that covenant is in there. You understand that?
Yeah, we understand. My client understands. He's reviewed the CNRs. He's signed the current ones. Prior drafts of this contain similar language, and he signed all of them.
And lastly, the covenant number 9 on the sanitary waste. There is no sewer line in the area at this time, right?
No, a sewer line has to be brought up. It would be a force main, which means pressurized sewage. It would be run out of basically where the Entenmann's facility is. It would be pressurized, which would mean to access it, the intake has to be at the site. You can't tap it along the way.
And no certificate of occupancy will be issued until the sewer issues are dealt with. You understand that as it relates to covenant restriction number 9, and then going back to covenant restriction number 3, that all permits, plans, and submissions will be completed within 36 months of town board approval. So you're on the clock as far as getting your sewer line in, keeping the approvals within 36 months, and then getting your certificates of occupancy.
You know, we do feel that's enough. I can't say, particularly after coming out of a year of COVID quarantine, that anybody can guarantee anything. And the sewer connections are the issue which the applicant has the least control over. He has the more control over what he builds on his own site. But 36 months is 3 years, so we should be able to do it within that period of time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other questions for Sean or the applicant? Otherwise, how many speakers do we have, Mary?
We have 4.
Okay. You want to bring the first speaker in?
We have Rick Lederer.
Okay, just to remind the speakers, you have 3 minutes. Rick? Rick Lederer, you're up. Rick, there you go.
Hello, hello.
Go ahead.
Can somebody hear me? This is Jean Lederer.
Okay, well.
Good evening, Supervisor Carpenter and Town Board. The town of Islip has yet, in my 33 years as a resident at 3 Prospect Avenue, to limit the amount of people living in single-family homes in Brentwood. This housing code is not and has never been enforced. Unsafe and unhealthy living conditions exist to this day for my neighbors. How can the town of Islip place this apartment overdevelopment in our already congested but caring community of neighbors? Is there concern of how it will impact our overcrowded Brentwood School District, busy Suffolk Avenue, stressed aquifer for clean drinking water, poor air quality, and litter issue that will continue to grow along Eastern Avenue? Through the years, this stay-at-home mom pushed 4 now grown sons in a stroller on Eastern Avenue. I would call about landscape dumping, mattresses, concrete and construction debris, beer and soda bottles, fast food containers and wrappers, even an empty spackle bucket of used motor oil. Eric Hoffmeister and I worked well together. July 26, 2016 saw in-person turnout of my neighbors on this same issue of overdevelopment of Knoll Farm. We spoke to the planning board well into sunrise the next morning. It's quite unfortunate this project seems to be rushed through during a pandemic, which was quite felt in numerous deaths and continuing illness of COVID-19 in Brentwood. Zoom meetings, speaking for myself, were not on the top of my to-do list and our hot spot of horror this past year and a half. I respectfully ask you to table this overdevelopment. Please meet Rick and me at Nikki's Clam Bar at breakfast this Sunday morning, Angie. Now we can talk more, or better yet, join me for a walk along Eastern Avenue and have tea with me on my front porch. Thank you very much for listening to me at this time.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Doris Davidson.
Lucky I covered it.
It was blacked out.
Doris, you have 3 minutes.
That's me now, give my nose, you know?
So,
Hello?
Good evening, can you hear me?
Now we can. Go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Supervisor and Town Board members. On July 15, 2020, Mr. Botel stated the same verbatim report he just read to you all, that people will take the train to, and that this project would attract young professionals. As many mentioned last year to him, no one is moving into Brentwood. Many are moving out of Brentwood. A few residents from East Brentwood on June 7th and June 9th of this year, we did our own traffic study. And it took 18.5 minutes from Fulton Street to Fifth Avenue, which is approximately 4 to 5 miles. He is proposing the same traffic light that is existing now to manage everything that's gonna be in this place. And all of this study that we did on our own took place between 5 and 5:30 p.m. The train station is at a 50% capacity currently, since many commuters are still working from home due to COVID. Barry, who is his traffic analyst for this project, must have done his traffic study during the height of COVID when we were in shutdown, because there is no way that they did not see the congestion of traffic in Brentwood on Suffolk Avenue. Continuing on with our study, on the opposite side of the tracks at the Heritage Apartments, which is a similar project with the exclusion of his coffee shop and retail within this complex. Within the hours of between 5 and 5:30, you will see approximately 4 to 5 adults with maybe 2 to 3 children arriving to their homes. If we take approximately, I'm just using a number, 100 units times 4, that's 400 adults that we're going to be putting into this complex, and about 250 children in our school district if they are of school age. Even though you are saying you're limiting the amount of people per unit, who is going to monitor when Maria, a resident in Unit 2B, brings in her 2 sisters and their kids to live with her? Do you see the increase in the population you're going to bring into this community? Currently, we are fighting to keep a waste transfer station out, Heartland out. We have a huge illegal dumping all in this community that just took place at the Clemente Pool. Litter, traffic, population are all damaging components to this community. Many requests are made to make change of use of properties and are approved, which leave many of us residents seeking assistance from code enforcement. These changes are damaging to our neighborhoods, and these issues impact the lives of us, the residents. You all do not live in this community. You all do not have to endure all the negative outcomes of choices and votes that the boards make. We're not opposing the sale of the land, but we are strongly opposing this project. As I mentioned last year, the seller can sell the land to a farmer or an agricultural business. Brentwood has been good to the Mercer family, and now we ask that the favor be returned. They're being greedy for the amount of money that this developer is willing to pay. Mr. Botel, you can build this project in your hometown of Smithtown, or you can tell your client to build this project in his hometown of Brightwaters, but not in our community. We stand strong about this, and we ask that the board tables this and revisit everything they have pointed out. Please look into the sewer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Joe Fritz.
Mr. Fritz, you may begin. Unmute. Go ahead, you may begin. Mr. Fritz, just unmute, please. Oh, you almost had it. We're almost there. Hit that unmute. There you go. Don't touch
Okay, we're
anything
set.
and start talking.
Okay, good evening, people. My name is Joe Fritz. I reside at 227 Ocean Avenue, Brentwood, New York. My home is approximately 3 blocks from the proposed development. In the 1990s, Timothy Matamore represented the owners of Knowles Farm in an application to construct apartments. He represented the owners who wanted to construct the apartment complex, which is similar to the one being presented today. In 1993, I used the analogy of a person who buys stock and the stock loses its value because the price went down. Who eats the loss? Why, of course, the owner of the stock. Many years ago, the owners of the property made it into a horse farm. They appeared and got necessary permits and approvals, and a horse farm was made. Now the current application is to make a mega profit by constructing apartments. And do you think that the home is in this community will increase in value, our homes, because of their investments? Not at all. In fact, the homeowner will be subsidizing the construction by the award of IDA reductions. And if one is not granted in terms of the taxes, the homeowners must pay for the increased school taxes. In effect, using the analogy about the stock, the homeowners will be underwriting the project to the builders. Bear in mind, this property is 1 acre zone. Were the construction of homes to be built, perhaps a downzoning to 1/2 acre, it would permit approximately 25 houses. They would make a profit, and the homes built will not increase the influx of students. Moreover, at the planning meetings, there was a discussion that the owner or contract vendee was in discussions with respect to the Enevans property to construct a sewer, which is 5 miles away. No mention was made to ask permission from the following agencies: the MTA, the County of Suffolk, and the federal government. I seriously doubt they will secure any permission, and getting permission does not imply that I believe the project should be granted. Today, I looked at the Suffolk County Highway website and found approximately 70,000 cars cross the crossing over on Fifth Avenue from the railroad tracks on Fifth Avenue to Crooked Hill Road. In addition, on a daily basis, 25,000 cars go in each direction on Suffolk Avenue. So the traffic study, while it seems insurmountable, it certainly has to be taken into consideration where the cars are a constant influx. And the former individual who spoke a moment ago outlined that rather well. I believe the Brentwood community will not benefit of having this property sold to a contract vendee to construct apartments. I know a decision may not be made today, but the town board should be mindful that there are enough apartments in this community, and further increasing the traffic flow, the quality of life, IDA grants, school population increases, etc., will not inure to the benefit of our community. I oppose this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fritz. Mary?
The last registered speaker is Maria Estrada Martinez.
Maria? Okay, Maria, go ahead. If you could just unmute, please.
I'm sorry.
No problem. Go ahead. You're ready. Go ahead, Maria.
Yes, I agree with all the people that has been speaking today. This project is not helping Brentwood at all. I'm a resident of Brentwood for 30 years now, and I have seen the school district that we don't have enough teachers. The school is not big enough for our students. They're in trailers. And now bringing all these houses to Brentwood is not going to help the community at all. It's going to help the richer get richer, but not us at all. And all the commotion that is going to go there with the traffic and everything else. And like Ms. Davison said, I don't know when they did a study on the traffic. They definitely did it on the COVID. not during the time. You cannot drive in Brentwood without doing half an hour just between Fulton Street, which is where we live, to Fifth Avenue. So just to bring this here to Brentwood, I oppose completely. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you very much. I just got a message of Mr. Stein registered at 5 o'clock. Do you have him, Mary?
I believe I don't get any more copies after 5, but he is present if.
Okay, if you could just, Mr. Stein.
I will promote him right now.
Thank
And there
you.
was one other person in the panel saying the same thing. They registered at 5.
Go ahead, Mr. Stein.
You have to unmute yourself.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Good. Thank you. Good evening, members of the town board. My name is Derek Stein. I'm a resident at Evergreen Avenue in Central Islip. It's a few blocks away, pretty much, 4 or 5 blocks away from this proposed development. And I have a big issue with this idea that this development is not going to increase traffic. Particularly when there's a proposal for a Starbucks to be installed or some kind of drive-through coffee shop, fast food restaurant. And you see this across a number of other main roads in Suffolk County, just in Hop Hog as well. The Starbucks on 111 backs up all the time, backs up onto the main road. In addition, the idea that I think with this number of houses and with this property, there's a lot more you could do with it that would be a lot better to benefit the community and be smart development. This is prime site. It's prime site for development. It's across the street from a train station. But at the same time, by just having apartments there with a drive-through, with a parking lot there, what's going to ultimately happen here is you're going to have people come to the drive-through. You're going to have people park in that parking space. You're going to have people who are going to the train station come in and now flock to the Brentwood train station instead of other train stations. So, it's going to have this backfill that you can't anticipate just from a number of people who are living there. There's going to be a lot more that comes with it. And on that same note, you have the issue of how many kids will this add to the school district. Brentwood and Central Islip are the 2 school districts pretty much in the entire county that are seeing enrollment increase by double digits at a time every year. They're pretty much the only ones that are increasing in the entire county. And that will continue with this sort of development. And if there are tax breaks given, which I don't know, to be honest, that won't help the residents of Brentwood. And that won't help the school district, and that won't help the existing homeowners who will have to contend with even more traffic, Suffolk Avenue between Brentwood Road and Joshua's Path. And and there's just so much more that you could do with this that would be a lot better. You could make it a park. Ross Park is closed down. There's been all sorts of dumping issues. Make it a park. Keep it open space. Maybe just make it a few shops. It doesn't need to be apartments, and it doesn't need to be a place that's going to increase traffic, and it will hurt the residents of Brentwood. Thank you for your time, and thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
We
Yeah,
just
you said you had one other speaker, last
just one other person who said they registered shortly after 5. His name is Thomas Troxler. He's just been promoted.
Okay. All right, Mr. Troxler, you may begin. Tom? Go ahead, Mr. Troxler.
Okay, I think I hit all the buttons.
Good, you're all set. Go.
Okay, I'd like to agree with everything that the previous speakers have already stated. I'll try to add to that. I'd like to start by saying I probably speak for a lot of other folks who, like Joe Fritz and I, struggle with Zoom, and also for those who struggle with English because it's not their primary language. Last fall, I helped to collect over or about 1,000 signatures on a petition opposing the construction of these apartments. This was going door to door in a pandemic. Folks eagerly signed. About 1% to 2% of the folks I approached declined to sign, mostly because of the language barrier. And excuse me, especially the folks who had just moved out from Queens, they practically yanked the clipboard out of my hand to sign. It's not why we moved out here, to see 3-story buildings that would tower over Suffolk Avenue and over our homes adjacent. This, a few years ago, last time this was attempted, I did a little study myself. I staked out the Heritage Gardens apartments on the south side of the tracks, an apartment complex steps away from the stairway that goes up to the train platform. I spent about an hour and a quarter, maybe 1.5 hours in the morning, on a weekday morning, tallying the amount of pedestrians that were walking from the apartment complex onto the train platform. I counted about 6. During that time, I tallied 60 cars leaving that complex, going into the local streets. This may answer the question posed by one of the planning board members a couple of weeks ago, and he never got the right a good answer. It would be tough to during this pandemic to get valid numbers now with regard to that ratio of commuters to drivers in this supposedly transit-oriented development, which is being sold as,
If you could wrap up.
apartment complex where young young professionals who have good jobs in the city are choosing to live in an apartment out here instead of an apartment in the city.
Your time is up. If you could wrap up, please.
180 apartments is probably going to be at least 360 more cars onto what is nicknamed Suffolk Avenue. It's very slow. As a result, a lot of cars are turning off of Suffolk Avenue. Instead of sitting in the gridlock, they turn onto Glenmore and Evergreen that run parallel to Suffolk.
Tom,
my Garmin
excuse
sends
me,
up
Tom,
Evergreen
you're well beyond your
to,
3 minutes.
bypass
If you
Suffolk
could
Avenue
wrap up,
and heading to
please,
points
Tom.
east.
Thank you.
About 17 years ago, a 5-story Wingate hotel was
Hello? Okay, I guess I don't see Tom on here now. All right, Mary, is that it with the speakers?
There is one more speaker who says that she registered also after 5.
Okay, this is probably not something we're going to do going forward because
They should not be able to register after
Right.
the evening start. I don't even get copied on it, so. Maria Gonzalez Prescott.
Hi, how are you?
We're fine, but you are the last speaker, so if you could.
Okay, I'll wrap it up. My name
Great.
is Maria Gonzalez Prescott. I'm the second vice president for the school board of Brentwood. The reason I am here today is to repeat what I said last time in the July 2020 meeting. Basically, this is an injustice and an overdevelopment in the area that's already congested. The homework was from the last meeting was that you were supposed to contact the school district to actually assess how many students will be coming to our school district. I mean, with 180 apartments, you estimate at least, 3, 4, 5, 600 kids coming into our school district. Are you opening up a new school? In regards to the traffic, like everyone said, have you really done a traffic study during a non-pandemic time? I do oppose this, project, and I would prefer that you guys do contact the school district.
Thank you very much, Maria. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it with the speakers. So we'll go back to the applicant. If there are any comments or concerns you wish to briefly address, or the department for that matter. I do understand that I know there have been quite a number of people who have asked us to recess this. Sean, are we waiting for some documentation?
Yes, the matter was referred to the Suffolk County Planning Commission, and by statute, we cannot, as the town board, cannot render a decision on this application, a final decision, until we receive the determination from that commission. So until they hear it, the staff would recommend that the board reserve decision tonight.
Okay. All right, then, hearing that, I would entertain a motion to perhaps close the public hearing and reserve decision on this.
I make that motion to close the public hearing and reserve decision.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilman O'Connor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is recessed to the next meeting. We have one final item. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you.
Vidal and your team.
Have a good night.
Thank you all.
We have one final item, TC 5368. We had this on the last meeting, but they were waiting for something from the county. It came in, Sean, explain it, please.
Sure. So we are waiting to hear the determination from the Suffolk County Planning Commission. They recommended grant. And we are also waiting revised elevations which complied with the superior architecture definition with the town code. The applicant dropped those off yesterday. They were reviewed by staff. And at this time, we believe that the elevations comply. So we are in a position to recommend grant of the application subject to those revised elevations.
Thank you, Sean. And hearing that, I'll make a motion to approve. The hearing's already closed. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Mullen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
We have 4 to adjourn. All in favor? Thank you so much.